So, hi everybody. I'm very glad to start the first lecture of a new series that we have started now during the lockdown. Then this is very particular for us to organize that. It was not so easy, but now we do it. We can do it. And this is not my choice. We have a student council at school, and they propose us to have the first lecture as Didier Faustino. For Didier, we are very glad to have you as the first choice of the students for the series of lecture. And next week we will have another one, etc., etc. So I would like that now Charles, one of the members of the student council, introduce Didier. Didier, can you open your mic and I will look at you?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for being with us. So if you have any questions during the presentation, put them on the chat and we will go to them later. So firstly, I would like to say that our ideas with this starting...
Look down, please. Okay, thank you.
So with our idea is to starting this lecture series is to address thematics and concerns relevant to the actual context through initiating discussion about implications on practice, public space, the freedom and safety paradigm, and design. Our guest is an architect.
Charles, I had a mistake. I have unmute you. I have mute you. Can you demute? Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Again. Charles, I did a mistake. Can you reopen your mic, please? Thank you.
Okay, that's good now.
Anymore. Okay.
Okay. So ideas with the starting lecture series is to address thematics and concerns relevant to the actual context through initiating a discussion about implications on practice, public space, the freedom, safety paradigm, and design. Our guest today is an architect and artist, which work explores the relationship between body and space. His multifaceted approach brought him to develop projects going from experimental installations, visual arts, the creation of sensorial spaces, to mobile architecture and buildings. He is currently well dedicated to his architecture projects worldwide and to his art installations and exhibitions, as well as teaching studio. So thank you, Didier Faustino, for accepting to give us this talk. I'll leave it to you from now. Thank you.
I just have to tell you that this lecture is also live on Facebook at the moment. So welcome, Didier, and you can start your lecture. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hello, Odile, and thank you for this invitation and to the Institute of Confluence to invite me.
Pleasure.
In this strange moment, I will try to express some ideas through my work here and answer to some questions the students ask me to tackle to give my point of view. I think the best is now to start with some pictures and let's go. I need to share my screen now. Is it working?
Yes, can you increase? No, it's not on the right place.
No.
Not yet. Okay, more or less, yes.
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 Okay. So we are in this, I will start with this first picture from a work I did few years ago. It was a series of slogans, some elements of what we live in our contemporary world. And it was this world I find interesting to start with this state of unreal, where we balance between reality and unreality, this doubt about what's going on, about our personal life in this state of, let's say, post-colonial, post-capitalist, post-everything, where this new century starts with this big question, what it will be tomorrow. I will start with a quote coming from the movie of David Fincher, Fight Club, who finished with the destruction of a city by the protagonist. It came from a book from Chuck Palahniuk, and I really like this quote because it's a bit the quote for me from I've been becoming my life as an architect, as an artist, as a designer, or maybe just as we said, a designer in English, but in French, concepteur, somebody who is with a team, a group of people who join me, question situation, contemporary situation, and try maybe not answer to questions, but put questions on the table and try to find ways to answer to these questions. So we are now in front of this moment of mass destruction, and we establish with this situation to try to find, let's say, clear moments of producing possibilities. I would like to say about the studio, about my work, about our work. This work should be seen through the lens of one word I really like is emancipation, of the emancipation of the body. Might it be physical, social, or politic? And probably our, I would say, our agenda is to work for the ones we call the misfit. Our studio is called the Miss Architecture Studio. It was something we built as a name just after the school in mid-90s, beginning of the 21st century. On this decade was this decade of grunge, of moments where this post-punk period, grunge was this moment of fighting against and in a way being totally disappointed by the world and not understanding what's going on and trying to exist through this in-between. What is the possibility we have to exist in our contemporary world if it's not to find in between this moment, this gap between reality, between virtual, between many situations. The only way probably is to interlock these two realities, to create, to produce new situations. In other times we will say we live in between hell and heaven. I will say, I don't know. I'm trying just to, through my work and these 2 decades of productions, to interrogate and trying this, some escapes from this unstopped loop, this world is still coming back to some realities we don't want anymore, but by the way. So we live now in this state of exception, was a kind of, who is actually a kind of moment coming from the reality who is this state of emergency. What could we do? What could we produce to change it, to try to find ways to escape to this emergency? I start 2 decades ago with a very simple project, with a kind of impossibility for the young architect or the young student who try to imagine or to think about what will be the tools for tomorrow for my practice. My first tools were to respond to few clients I got in my village in Portugal. This small village in north of Portugal, who's called Caixeira Santa Eufémia, where I learned most of my lessons with ancient people and kids and my friends who live there, my family. My first clients were these kids from the village who asked me who was my work. At this time, I was just a young architect, not knowing what I would do. And I answered first time of my life, I'm an architect. And they asked me, so if you are an architect, you are able to build things, to change things. We don't have a house. We want to have a house. We want to change this situation. And we built all together a very simple house made from nothing, made from le hasard, the things we find. This 2-story house is my first house. It was also something to answer to this world of consumption. And for this piece of work, I give a name, a very simple name, who was my first house, making a kind of connection from this work to the consumption world. Actually, my first house came from the slogan from Sony in the 70s, who was my first Sony. Why should I have something in first who is not something I need really? At the same period, and I was looking to my work yesterday to prepare this lecture, and I find this text I wrote was actually my diploma text, a conclusion of my text, where I find could be something to start today. So I just read it. There is no human mind without a body. In this time of Indianapolis, you must recover your awareness of the physical world. One way is to produce fragile objects, systems, spaces who are mindful only through the body, being all at once physical, social, and political. Architecture may be a tool to emphasize our sense and sharpen our consciousness of reality, which tend to be erased by over-information, egocentrism, and control. And I will probably add consumption. And my first thing was to use this very simple thing was, what can I experience to do that? Fragility became an obvious word of fragility for me was the answer to, in French we say certitude, who are these things we learn along our life, and we conform to be strong, to be wise, to be rich, to be successful, to be, I don't know, whatever. But one thing is fragility. Fragility is our condition from our body, from our state of social life, our everything is fragile. My first projects were and still are around this notion of fragility. The notion for me, the most important is how to escape and how to build something safer, maybe less fragile, to protect us, to emancipate us from our condition. The first project I will show you is a project for the Museum of la Ville de Paris we did at Couvent des Cordeliers it was around 2005. And we try to build an environment inside this historical place where the first discussions in Paris about revolution were discussed about what will be the new world. Revolutionaries were imagining. And I take this quote from Sphere of Peter Sloterdijk, who is sorry is in French, but I will translate it. The construction of islands, it's the inversion of the habitat, of the housing. There is any more time to put the building in an environment, but to put an environment inside the building. From that, the idea was to put an environment who will be reacting, changing, fragile as we are, a place as a shelter for precious things. Actually, it was the lecture hall for this transient and temporary exhibition. And we built this chrysalid, this kind of double wing, this vortex, super fragile vortex who at moment react to the talks, to the lectures. Again, give a lecture here. A lot of people came for this show to give lectures and to talk about the fragility of the world and the conditions of the contemporary world. This double vortex is a kind of a moment, this very ephemeral moment, which is created by the combination of two flux, one cold, one hot, and generates this spiral, this what we call the vortex, with this moment where we don't know what will happen after this moment of pure insecurity, of maximum fragility, was built in this place just to, in a kind of very fragile and equilibrated fragility, will be the place for words, for the ephemeral moment where words go out and meet people and discussion start and thinking can be placed. My production is not voluntary, not something where we compete to build big things, and we have this agenda to succeed. My agenda is more as the theory of the fluids. This theory would talk where there is this concept of percolations, where instead of trying to change a state from one state to another one, not using big solutions. And it's the case, for example, and I take the coffee machine as an example, to make coffee, to transform water in coffee, it's not using the grains, full grains of coffee, but we broke it. We demultiplicate this coffee grains to become the powder, and the fluid going through changes state. And that's what we want to produce, what I want to produce, and I try to achieve is as an acupuncture, trying from small moments to be part of what is going on and changing and trying to question situations. One example, the Stairway to Heaven in Portugal, who was a piece built as a public space, not a public space for many people, where we became alone in the group, but more a public space for the individual use, a public space for one, a public space to be existing as one. This project was built in a small suburbia in a town called, sorry, I forget the name, but in a small town in Portugal, near the old city, historical city, and the neighborhood of social housing. And it was this moment where the equilibrium is between being alone, not existing, and having the chance at one moment to be visible, existing. Another piece we built in South Korea, in the border with the 58e, 59th parallel between the two countries, a place for dialogue. The sky is the limit is a construction, a kind of belvedere in front of the Yellow Sea, looking to the earth or the land, the mainland, and the immensity of ocean. And this in-between space which generated these two space was built as a territory, a kind of suspended territory where the people can go to exchange between two situations, between two containers, ideas, dialogues, and share their mind. Another piece with double happiness, a piece we built in Shenzhen in China during it was the Biennale of Shenzhen a few years ago, who was a kind of metaphor in front of the building. On the right, you see the building under construction of the new stock market of Shenzhen. To build, so the idea was to build a place to experience our fragility, our moments of suspended being, interrogating what will be the future. So balancing between void and void, future and past. So what will be the answer? Maybe, I don't know, but the piece was also a kind of proposal about living alone in this situation where we are supposedly share the thing. So kind of paradox, alone and together, a kind of impossibility to be all together, who is not so different about what we are living now, this state of exception, where our together is now totally under question. What will be our together? And probably what was the world before was something where we don't have consciousness or enough consciousness of what is to be together and how it is important. One possibility inside of our metropolis was to think about legality and the power, how we can escape to rules, to be together, to share, to be existing just as individuals in middle of our society, we think, for us. And I take this quote from La Bande à Bader, who is this terrorist group, the Fraction Army, Red Fraction Army, from the 70s, who for me is this notion of legal and illegal is really important. What is legal? What could be the legality in situation of exception, emergency situations? Shall we follow legality or shall we act and do from what we think is good to do? One proposal came after this was a project for Guangzhou in south of China, who was a project to design public space, but public space who can be removed, kind of transient public space, kind of space for freedom. And we proposed this project was to build walls, very simple walls according, but I will come on that situation after about walls who divide, but building walls who put us together. And we produce this, what we call the Bureau for Umtriebe, who is the translation is office or space for conspiration, the space where people in the street can meet and be protected a shelter for the voice, a shelter to speak and to share. Sharing is something we need, who is part of our human condition. We are social animals. We live in society, groups. We are not individuals. We are building, since the beginning of humanity, something together. And this situation may be caught in Kropotkin, let's say the proto-anarchists who talk about entraide, helping, who is the main thing for human society to build collectively future, is not being alone and not acting alone for ourselves, but acting together. About acting together, it was this project. We were invited to Venice Biennale in 2000, and Massimiliano Fuchs has put a question for me, which is still very important, was this question of what will be the future, what will be the future of our cities. And my proposal was to build something was not a proposal, but more a question. What happened in our society who are now closed to themselves and close their frontiers? The borders are closed and we are afraid about the others. How can we survive to that? And how can we, in a way, find solutions to make this contresens, not logic situation where we close ourselves into limits? Where can we open these limits and make exchange again possible? In this case was the impossible situation of migration, of migrants who are trying to escape dramatic situations, and our countries, societies close their doors, don't help them, don't entraide. There is no entraide, I don't know the word in English, entraide, but it's mutual help. Why this notion is so fragile, while our societies each time rewrite it, and the fears make us close our doors. And I propose this absurd proposal for an architecture, a minimum existence architecture, who will be the essence to protect a body, a fragile body in dangerous situation of transit. And I propose this mini architecture, minimum existence or minimum surviving, to protect the life, and the absurd to put this life in kind of planes to go from one place to another one. Of course, this project is kind of absurd, as I said, but in the same way, put the question on the table, what we will do tomorrow. The concept of minimum existence is a concept who came from the beginning of century by the German architects after the First World War, who are trying to make home for everybody and build situations, homes who were clean, healthy, and able to be shared for everybody. It was this period where the catastrophe, the state of exception of this war was totally changing the paradigm. And during these 10 years, architects were redefining, reinventing, and building new situations, social, political, and new situations. And these 10 years between the two wars were a super important moment where mutual help became the key point to survive, to find solutions. And after that, the fear appears again, and we know what's happened after that moment. A new war, a new system, a new politics again. And that's the well of the circle of life. And for that situation, what can we do now? We are facing this moment where, again, the emergency generates this exception moment. And we need for tomorrow find new solution, new questions, and try to protect what we still have and will have is this notion of collectiveness, of together, and not individualism. I produced a few years ago this piece with home, suit home, as the habitat becoming our second skin. This second skin, who is not a skin of strongness, who is a fragile skin, a membrana, with our limits, contain our limit and our fragility. And this fragility, I try to, in other projects, to look to that and to produce, in the same time, question and answer sometimes. The case of habitat, of the minimum existence, we start to look about what can we do, how can we have and produce a home for whole, a home for everybody. Humanity is more than half out of property, out of access to the more simple things. And we start to think about real estate and the value of real estate with the square meter. And that's why we start with this project, just looking about 1 square meter and what can we build with 1 square meter. We built this project, it's called a 1 square meter house, a house with all the basics to exist, to survive, to live, a home for individual bodies to protect this individual body, a home with all the necessity, a home where the value of this home will be always the same everywhere, a kind of rethinking of what mass production can produce and don't produce, with the possibility to give to all of us a place to live. Of course, this project, let's say the second lecture or the second layer of this project is, if we go to that, what will be about together? A home to survive, a home to live, but what about the collective space, the common space, the public space, the place where we share? So this home is not a home to live, it's a home to survive, a minimum survival house, but a house, a home who just invite us to come back to the public space, to the collective space, the place where we can share, the place where we can be together and we can meet each others. We built a prototype in Paris. We're still there in 13 districts. This prototype is not completed since a few years. It's in this state of in between a art piece and in between an architecture, something where legal situations don't allow us to make it work because security, etc., was not allowed furbish on the project. So basically this project is a failure, but failures from failures we learn and we can build others possibilities. Actually, our office is called Miss Architecture. For one question is, there is something positive on building failures, because from that we learn and from that we rebuild. From individuals, the second situation, or the one who come, is the one-to-one. How we exchange, how we met the other, and who are the space to meet. We got this project from a couple of psychiatrists and psychanalyst doctors, collectors, who asked us to design a room for exchange, a room for discussion. And I start from a very simple idea, considering their activities, who were these activities of sharing the voice, sharing the ideas, and elements of representation of the statue of this condition, being psychiatrist and psychanalyst. And I take the armchair from the hymns, and I try to make a mutation. Why shall we invent? Let's try just to transform it in another situation. And I built this proposal through this kind of mutation, becoming a shelter, a soft shelter for discussions. And we place it not in the house, not in the building, not in their place, but in the small courtyard they have, to be a place for exchange, one-to-one, to take care about the other one. Something to hear, because I really think we don't take time to hear. In French we say entendre and écouter. It's not the same thing. Entendre is hearing, écouter is paying attention, let's say. And what we need is paying attention. But paying attention, a project came also in the same sequence about duality and meeting between two. Something about this idea of emancipation, this idea of, let's say, the ones we don't hear, a kind of space in between to connect, a tool to connect two people. This tool, I call this tool the doppelganger, with this idea the other one is, when I met him, can be an extension of myself. So why I should not take care of him? It was an ironic piece. It's more a piece for absurdity, like the physical voice should be materialized and contact should be materialized through an instrument. And we make this mask to connect the ones to the other ones. To connect the ones to the other ones is probably something I think for the next decades we need to work on. And not only because the situation, but how we will invent situation to be safe to exchange. I mean, this exception moment brings another situation with everything will be exception. And if we go on this way, there is something who is very frightened, who is like everything will be under control, will be controlled and analyzed. And we tried at one moment to think about a project where our public space, our cities will provide what called Hervé Guibert few long time ago called vicious situations, where the real freedom can be expressed out of control. And last year we worked on a project we called, I don't remember the name. The names sometimes are not so important, but we call it, I don't remember, sorry. That's the problem to be alone. That's really bizarre. I don't have a kind of feedback. So, by the way, this project is called Tender Room, sorry. And this Tender Room is a place for queer people, for fragile people, for the ones who want to meet the other ones, not to be judged, not to be controlled about what they do. And we produce this Tender Room looking about these apps we have also about meeting people who became this incredible filter who tell us if we fit or if we match with the other ones, where everything became in a way about parameters, the parameters of race, about color, about sexual identity, and we go through all these elements to meet the other ones. So means other meetings, other moments of unexpected meet are quite impossible in our world, the world we live. And we try to think what could be the element in our urban space, our public space, where the people can go and have this protected moment of not knowing who they will meet, but knowing that it will be a meeting without the eye of the others, of the ones who control. So this Tender Room is a tender to do in our wild world, to do des rencontres, unexpected meetings, unexpected acts, and to do that without or totally free of conventions, to emancipate our freedom to be ourself. At the same time, this notion of bringing to the others, bringing to the collective, interrogate our practice of our social medias and our ways of working. And for that, we start coming from through project to work on another project. It was a previous project, by the way, but we interrogate the question of working and how we will work from tomorrow and from today to tomorrow. And we start to work about, to think about a place for what we call the networkers, the ones who work from a place to another one without moving. And we built an office, minimum dwelling, an office where people can go and work on virtual world, other situation, what we call these days the télétravail. So we produce this kind of place where we can go for small entities and be isolated and work together in a kind of more large system. Of course, this small concentration don't give us the possibility to do other things. So the only way to escape to that is go out and go somewhere else. Going somewhere else is something which is part of our identity, about our DNA. We are a curious species. We don't satisfy about being somewhere for whole life. We want to explore. And this point is bringing the question of why do we build frontiers, walls, filters between us. We were invited by the Storefront a few years ago. It was actually the moment where America started the war in Afghanistan, and where this place becoming so important in our imaginary was Guantanamo, this place where we confiscate, we take people out of all context and we isolate them. And I use this this situation and this new situation about the human rights, to build the proposal about for the storefront with this space for exhibiting architecture, with a kind of interesting space because it's, you know, way diluting what is public from what is private. And this open territory is a territory of the uncertainty, of a territory of openness, but at the same time a space of discomfort, because you are out but in, you are in but out. And what I want to bring on to contribute to this ambiguous space is the paradigm of our society with this space of control, this in-between, between public and private, between in and out, between you and me. With this space, we never have totally consciousness of it, but this space of transition, this space of negotiation. And we built this fence, which is also the symbol and invention of modernity of the 20th century, was how we built properties and we save it. So the chain link became the symbol at the same time in Guantanamo, and all this space became the symbol of confiscation of freedom, of identity. You became nobody when you go through these situations. And we just materialize this in between out and in, and we force the visitors of the exhibition who was inside to go through this state of insecurity, this state of fragility, this state of danger, to experience the exhibition inside, was actually just a projection of myself, my identity covered by bubblegum, a production. I produce my disintegration of identity. Few years after, in the same sequence, was the year after, just to give the context, also because we react to the context, we do also things right now because we need to act also at this emergency of the moment, maybe sometimes without going on the legal and putting our feet on illegality. George Bush lost the elections and Obama arrived. And the LACSART in LA, the Space for Arts and Architecture in Los Angeles, invite me to do a project. And for me, it was a continuation of what we do in Storefront, but looking about the hope who brings also this new situation. I mean, this symbol of the new president of the United States is coming from a minority, is also something who was for me at this time kind of super hope moment about the world will changing. And we just bring these limits into the gallery to build an inverted and open fence, frontier where we can cross through the frontier. Sorry. To build to open frontiers, to this hope about the walls will finally, maybe once again, the walls will fall after Berlin and the walls of Berlin, in this situation where the world is back to this kind of fear of the others, and countries back to this kind of only solution is to close the doors and build walls. And we make this fence who was in a way a kind of vortex of fence where the people can cross and go from one side to the other one. Of course, all these acts are symbolic and are examples of what we time by time we can to on light and put under projectors situations. But the most precious thing is still the one we need to protect more than the other all, is the right to speak, the right to express, the right to have an opinion. And this right, for that, we built a kind of prosthesis to microphones to start a kind of what we call a kind of tool of discussion to pay the attention between two people and to express yourself, to hear more. This project actually just bring one question: can we pay attention, or can the others pay attention to what we say, or vice versa? Can I pay attention to the others? The others, there is multitude of tools to organize this situation, and the voice we really have to protect is most of the time under control. On this project, with a strange title, we call it The Memories of Tomorrow, is not a real project. It's a transformation, an alteration, a modification of an existing element of controlling public space with the barrier. This, in French, the name is Vauban barrière, les barrières Vauban. There is many words in the world, but this element is a common element to control public and to organize flux. We try to transform it to bring another meaning to these barriers and to change the use of these barriers, not about trying to control flux or generating controls, but more to build unexpected moments where, in a way, the alteration of the object brings new meanings. And we try to make an atlas of possibilities. There is infinite possibilities of that. In a way, building, let's say, gardens or space for the public space, situations where something will appear, not only on the case of exception when we want to control population or flux, but just to organize different ways of meeting. At the same time, we did a performance in Paris. We built a cage with this element, and we put policemen, and we asked us to sing songs. And we write a strange song who was a mix from Bizet and Public Image Limited. So Carmen de Bizet, L'amour est un oiseau qui n'est pas en cage, so the bird, you know, the song, and Public Image Limited. So that was the song, the answer of the police saying, this is not a love song. This love song, impossible love song between power, individuals, and freedom, needs to be looked as a possibility to invent new tools, new situation, new space. And what we learned from the previous project, Memories of Tomorrow, was, in a way, it's not because you offer a new situation, the people will be able to use it. We need really to invent new situations and find the ways to behave it differently. I mean, we need to behave in a way to encourage new behaviors. And through voila. And we designed this new project, who was about the riots, a kind of new kind of fence. We can build new barriers, but to make pockets to protect groups from attacks, from violence, and from individual elements who can be also a tool to defend ourselves, a weapon, let's say, a kind of reactive weapon. If we join this weapon to another one, to another one, to another one, we can produce, in French we say auto-bloquant, system who auto-fix himself to create pockets of resistance, safe pockets of resistance. And we expose it, and we show it at the Chicago Biennale a few years ago. What I want to say from this project was 3 words very important for me. Is about something we need to protect, is about protest, resist, and occupy. What will be for tomorrow? These 3 words on this state of exception, who can be, let's say, a good situation to enforce the control. So a very different project, but we'll talk maybe about courage, about being brave, on the Théâtre du Vide and the Leap on the Void by Yves Klein. We project a safety experience to encourage the people to be brave. So this opus incertum is to experiment the danger or safety, this situation of leap on the void, because fragility is brutal and the situation is brutal on our existence, fragile existence. So just to make a transition about this brutal fragility we live, our moments is about consciousness, about this collective fragility. So we need to invent and to probably build new situations, I don't know. But I take some examples of project, 3 examples of project about this new condition of collective fragility. One is still connected to housing, about homes for everybody, homes for all. It's a porcelain bunker. Porcelain because it's a material of fragility, and bunker because this fragility, during centuries, we tried to build castles, bunkers, big walls to protect our fragility. And tomorrow, from today, this fragility, we discover we don't need big walls, we don't need strong situation, we need something else, something who will be more himself fragile, something who will need just to protect our life, but not from what we think we were, the dangers coming. This fragile house, this bunker of porcelain is just a space to recover also our sense of animality, our state of fragility, our behaviors were totally predicted and under control. Why we don't invent new situations where the behavior we know we act will be a new system? So more than inventing or trying to produce new things, new tools, maybe we need to first at all look about new behaviors and how we can produce these new behaviors. New behaviors, new situations, fragility. It was 3 years ago exactly. It was in April 28th of 2017, in Mexico, a big earthquake occurred and made a lot of victims. And in this case, the space we were supposed to protect, the homes, were totally destroyed because built as not fragile and softness element to respond to this exceptional moment with a earthquake. And in the state of Juchitán, millions of people, not millions, but thousands of people became without house. And these people were the more poor people, poor community of Mexico, start again to build new house, but from what they think will be protect them with concrete bricks. And the question was not to rebuild the things, but to do something who can be helping them, not as individuals, but something who can be a place to protect them, protect community in case of danger. And we were asked by NGO, who asked to many architects to design for this specific community, who is the community of the Zapotec Indians, to try to find a place, to design place where they can go all together in case of emergency, because they are so poor. The only way for them to show their success and social and thing is to reproduce what society do, with like strong house and etc., with also the meaning of a kind of success. And we cannot change these habits, but we can find situations where in case of emergency, they can escape from this wrong idea. Strongness is safe. Strongness is not safe. So we design, we propose to this community, according their history, we was this history of the hamac, where the house is not the house, something they totally forget, where our modern society and colonialism erase from their knowledge, where the house is the thing you can carry, and what you carry it in the hamac, and the hamac, when you establish the hamac, became your home. So from that, we start to think maybe we can produce a collective house, a place where the hamac can be, in case of emergency, where the hamac will be again the only element they can carry, the place where we can establish a collective living for this moment of emergency. And we take some other reference to design this project with a kind of shelter, a cookie shelter, auto-stable, who is also climatized and an open space where they can, in case of emergency, bring back their home and be all together. By the way, at the same moment we were working for this foundation and this NGO, and this foundation who introduced us to this project in Juchitán, asked us to think about what will be a building for a foundation NGO who can have a mixed use, who can be, in case of emergency, of exception, change his function to another one. So just to explain a bit the context, the foundation is a cultural foundation, but in the case of the earthquake, and after the earthquake, they decide to change their statute and becoming an NGO who can act in case of emergency. And so let's say the question they asked us to solve was, how can we make a building who can be at the same time a cultural center for the neighborhood, for our foundation, for the exchange, etc. And the day after, in case of emergency, becoming a new function who is a base for acting and react super quickly and to go and help population. So we designed through a place to be a platform, helicopter platform, with probably one of the system of quick emergency when the roads are destroyed, etc., from air to go from one point to another one. And that became the paradigm of the building. And this platform will have two functions. Who is a circus place, a kind of a conference hall for the foundation, or in the other moments, a platform of quick connectivity, physical connectivity. So here is the building and the proposal. It's for a bifunctional building, an emergency infrastructure for the city, who can be occupied quickly by teams of rescue, or a cultural center to exhibit, to do shows and events for the communities. So probably that's one thing, is about the multi-use of space we need to think also. And that's the new coming thing, is how a place was a place to live becoming an emergency place, or becoming a survival place, by the way. That's, anyway, voila. So just another situation to interrogate our new coming days. We are all in this moment in this state of sedentarism. Sedentarity is now the common moment. What we need to not forget is communities, human communities at the beginning were nomads, where societies who live in equilibrium with nature and go and display themselves for exploring and also to survive. And this condition is probably the most fragile condition all over the history, where all the societies start to fight, because this condition, who is the condition of the free movement, is the most dangerous for the control. And we live in this society until now with always trying to control us, to control our displacement, about recognition, about, by the way, controlling us. So we arrived in this society at a point where we live in this over-speed movement, where we have this illusion of we can go everywhere, but under control. And just an interrogation, what will be tomorrow on this state of exception, if this state of exception became the normality? What will be the way to escape to that, to be nomads again, to find the right to move without being under control? So not being zombies, and that's why I put this picture, not being zombies where our bodies can move, but our mind is not existing anymore. Our freedom of thinking can be not anymore possible. What will be the solutions? So back to situations probably where we can move, our homes can move, our homes can be migrants, can be nomads, can be not fixed, mobility. That's a right we need to integrate in our thinking now back. We did this project 5 years ago in Mexico City. And this project was coming from all these ideas we were looking about this situation. This project is called Portátil Democracia, and it was a project of bringing speech, talk, exchange in communities where the control, whatever the control is, the state control, government control, cartels control, is not anymore possible. It's not the free speech, the free conversation, opinion is not anymore possible. So we designed this Portátil Democracia, this small agora for 10 people, super safe place to be moved in different village in Mexico. For the people can use it to share whatever. And we built it. The project is still on process. Now we are trying to have some permits to put it on the truck and to go deliver this kind of free thinking space, free exchange territory along the Mexican territory. By the way, the project from 3 weeks, and that's what we are now working on at the studio, is a kind of mutation of this project where a local situation, who is the one of the village in Mexico, where freedom is in a way in danger through the cartels and all these things, can be a common new situations. And we just make these pictures about our Portátil Democracia to be sprouted through an institution everywhere in the world. Protection, individuals, fragility. I just want to conclude with this project. It was a project linked to La Havana 2 years ago, and about, in a way, other topics, but who came in the same table, was the question of moments where utopias fall, dreams fall. And in Mexico, not in Mexico, in La Havana, we find this moment where in a way, world is changing, situation is changing, and we need to protect the ones who are fragile. And also, we find at this moment there a building and buildings where they are dying. And we designed this small device to protect the body in dangerous situation, where these falling buildings, to explore space. And we use the building of Garati, the school of music, the school of dance in La Havana, who is a building we never have been completed, with also the symbol of the failure of dreams, of utopias, where these architects start to build a new world, a new educational world, and politics change it and make it avoid this dream. And this building was abandoned from many years, and now maybe there will be a new thing. I don't know what will be, but we use the building to make a small film using this device, exploring this building. And I have just to conclude this small film. We tribute also to Galati and this period, and here is the movie.
Futuro, quello che non è che tutti, il futuro è quello che abbiamo tutti, no? Un futuro drammatico. Amo el espacio, amo el movimiento, la interrelación. Amo los sistemas abiertos que se nutren de intercambios. Odio los sistemas cerrados que sofocan. Amo el viaje, la aventura, también como metáfora. El viaje como investigación. La investigación como conocimiento. El proyecto como conocimiento. Un duende que te acompaña, que te da la justa dosis de inconsciencia, que te ayuda a tener fe en el proyecto, que no te espanta de frente a aquello que los procesos orgánicos autogeneran. Amo los lugares oscuros, los lugares del misterio, las ojeades de oscuridad y luz. Amo el barroco. Encuentro perfecta la palabra de Vedova. De toda arquitectura anterior, es lo que más se acerca a nuestra sensibilidad, aquel construir en la luz, aquellos planos dinámicos. Me parece que hablan de una movilidad afín al espacio contemporáneo. Toda época tiene características propias y la nuestra, por diversos datos, me parece caracterizada por la no mesurable, por la decadencia de lo clásico a priori, por una perenne movilidad, lo contrario del concepto puro de la moral instituida, de las leyes establecidas. Amo el barroco, amo su instabilidad, amo su permisividad total.
So let's go back to this brutal reality, and we still need to exist. So thank you very much. My grandfather used to say, never apologize for what you think is right. I will just apologize for this strange monologue I got in front of my screen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Didier. And I don't know if we have a bit of time. We have now something like between 10 and 15 minutes to have questions. If somebody has questions, I can reopen all your mic, or you reopen yourself your mic. And it was really what I first want to say is that this is really, I know your work for a long time, Didier, but I didn't realize how accurate it is for the time being. And it's really, really important. Thank you very much. So if somebody wants to ask question, you can reopen your mic and ask question to Didier.
So there are some questions in the chat already. So the first one is from Yasemin Baidar. So if you'd like to open your mic and ask it.
Yasmin Baidar and Birol are the two who will give a lecture next week. This is nice that they ask questions. Yasmin, if you want to open your mic.
Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, so nice to see you again.
Questions.
Yeah, actually, we asked question about, first of all, thank you so much. It's great to listen to you more deeply now. And our question is about your work is really more about body, like, you know, do you take body as an element of under protection, and you secure, and first as an architect, as also as a human, you are so tender and so respectful to take care of people. And but then also we are now in the transition to another era where we are getting more virtual and all the security systems are getting more invisible. So how do you prospect this new dimension of life, and with your work, how you responded also?
That's the question. That's the question. I think we are facing something with a kind of repetition for me. It's a repetition. I was on my presentation, I was evoking the First World War. It was a big drama, and what I not speak about was the crisis of '29.
Yeah.
And the thing is like this. It reminds me a piece of Fischli and Weiss. They're like, you know, the consequence and the consequence. It's like this kind of repetition. And the question of what we are living now is this moment of exception, this drama with a kind of, we cannot, so. And the thing the questions who are now on the table are not, we are facing this emergency. We are now working on that and trying to find the moment solutions. But what is in behind is we need to work on the coming solutions, because there will be this state of emergency, this state of, let's say, real state of exception cannot be the one of the state of usual. I mean, and that we need to find it. So I have no answer, but the thing is like, we need to sharp our attention about, and I mean, I was hearing this morning some quotes of Jean-Paul Sartre, who was saying that the moment he feels more free was the moment of the war, because where the moment you can imagine, you can, so we need to take this moment as the moment to invent, to find a way, and to be more accurate and pay more attention on what's going on and what will be the tomorrow.
Yeah,
so,
actually, I agree with you about attention, especially because what is coming with the package of this time solutions, we have a lot of surveillance in the package. So we should not take it in advantage, and we should really question it also.
Yeah, and until now, the question, that's the big question for me now, and we are all looking about that, this kind of weird moment where until now, the question of surveillance was a consequence of the control, and to put and make it, but we were thinking it was about the surface, the body himself, and our thing. But now, with this health moment, with this care situation, it's going inside us. So it's not fully control is coming, because now it's not anymore the control of what we say or what we behave. It's the control of our inside. I mean, our humanity, our body is the reflex about our emotions. And if the control start to get in, that's the full control will come in front of you.
Yeah, he has a question about.
So Charles, can you say the other question, because we have some.
So
we don't have so long time because we have to close in 10 minutes.
yeah, the next question is from Etienne Condel. So if you'd like to ask it.
Can you read it, Didier, the questions or not?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, good.
If I may. Bonjour Didier. Thank you a lot for your speech. And my question was about body, and I would sum it up in a very quick way. It appears with the current crisis that breathing and the overall atmosphere and the air is not only a matter of gases, but also a matter of humidity and danger. So I was wondering if you were currently working on this point, the fact that something usually invisible and identified as a simple gas with mainly no major risks in accident, becoming something quite dangerous and transporting particles of liquids, body fluids, which makes a very different relation to our bodies and to the proximity we may have to each other. So it's especially something about the fact that it's not perceived as dry anymore. You work on this point on masks and any kind of protections, and not only about distance and the distance between the people.
Currently, no. There is strange because it's now something we're like looking about our competence, and this competence usually we take this competence from others, techno, and looking and research about. What we are looking is like more about what will be the materials we will use, with a question, what will be the next materials? And when I explained it was a kind of intuition since a long time, where the heaviness, all this kind of situations we built to protect was according to our fragility. I mean, that physical and protective thing. And then this situation of the inside, what's make me now a bit super aware is like, well, okay, all the elements of protections we have now, we can find, needs to come from this other technologies we are looking. So it's more, I mean, we are not now working on that, but we are talking a lot about basically what will be the next material, the materials we will use for the next.
Yes, fabric. Thank you. Thank you a lot.
So there is another.
Yeah, so we have one last question, which is from Lucia.
Yes, Lucia.
Hi, that was a really nice lecture. Thank you so much. So my question was...
Lucia, can you open your video too? Because
yes,
we don't see you.
Okay. So my question, I have two questions actually. Maybe we can do one, or if we have time, we do the second one. But the first one was, do you ever think of any of your architectural projects as art? And like, do you, like you do with your installations, or is there never any distinction? Like, is there any point that differentiates an installation versus a piece of architecture, for example, or is it the way of treating the work in subject that creates the distinction between them two?
No.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one very current question I have on my work. I don't make any distinctions.
Mm-hmm.
It's about experimenting, exploring always. So the question of scale, no, I mean, I just answer no. That's I just said at the beginning is, am I an architect? I was trained as an architect. So I have the knowledge and probably the capacity of admitting I have not all the knowledge. With probably the most beautiful thing of architecture is we need the others. I have not the skills for everything. I have not the knowledge. I need others to build things. For the question art, architecture, design, I used to say, in English it's more easy. I will say I'm a designer. I'm a designer. In French, I will say I'm a concepteur. I look myself as a concepteur. Artist, architect, discipline is, I'm indisciplinaire. Out of discipline, I don't care about disciplines. I care about curiosity and interrogation and the right of being able to ask questions and to say no if I don't want to do something or don't like something. So that's the point. And the thing is important because we are in a school.
You are supposed to be in the school.
Is for me, it's about open mind, open eyes, and look and react. Art, architecture, design is about looking and acting.
Lucia, you had a second question.
Yes. And in your processes of working, do you usually go into a project with an idea and then the conception of the idea? Or are there times when you just decide to dive into something not really knowing what, and then in developing the project, not really having a clear idea, you start evolving the new concept that you have in mind? Or do you always have a clear idea of what you want in the beginning, or like a clear concept?
Very good question. I will answer by no. I have no ideas. There is one thing. I have no clear ideas when we start a project, whatever the size of your project, of the question. But I have this practice with a bit, I will say, a palimpsestic practice with, I'm learning about the process, and the project is never ending. Project can be parts of project, or projects can reappear, or rewrite, redraw, transform. So each project informs another one. So it's a kind of language, it's une phrase sans fin. Un palimpseste.
Right.
Ok, donc on a d'autres réactions, mais qui ne sont pas des questions. On a une réaction de Amin Lemsefer, qui est aussi un étudiant de l'école, qui dit merci, c'était vraiment formidable et qu'on espère bien te voir un jour à l'école directement. On a une longue, à moins que Aaron veuille la dire lui-même. Aaron, tu es toujours là? Non. Donc, on a une réaction aussi de Aaron Sprecher, qui dit an absolutely fascinating lecture. Thank you, Didier, Odile, and Confluence. Paul Virilio once declared that we will experience the big accident when the virtual overtakes the physical. Now that our lives are driven by virtual data and statistics about an invisible viral spread, our reality echoes in many ways Virilio's word. Thank you again and see you soon. And the last one, which is from Gasper Kunik, or Kunsik, I'm sorry if I don't say it correctly. Dear Didier, thank you so much for your presentation. It's too bad we don't have more time for question and answer as there are many. Your presentation and practice are very relevant for me, as well they are to current situation. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And Etienne is coming back. Thank you again a lot. So clap, clap, clap. Thank you very much, Didier.
Merci to you, of course, and merci.
At the same time, we will have Birol and Yasmin that we were the first questionnaires at the same time a long lecture too. Thank you very much.
See you
very soon.
Thank you. Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody.
Nice talk.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Next
See
week.
you. Thank you.
And
Didier.
we remember that it was registered and live on Facebook, so and we have registered the lecture. So if you want to really look at the lecture, we can share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.